Hi, folks. This is Don Meissner with the North Country Fishing Report. One of the things that I want, or that I've realized and I wanted to share with you, is each year I see really big changes in the waters that I fish. Now, part of it is we're trying to control somewhat the climate, but you can't control the climate. You don't really know how much rain is going to fall over a given period of time. But one of the things that really does affect the fishing in our area is the level of the water. And we can kind of take that for granted. We look on it a different way in the St. Lawrence, in that when the water gets too low, it really does a lot of damage and risk to a lot of the homes and cottages and docks and so forth that we have. People just can't get out on the water. But on the tributaries, where I wade all the time, I've noticed that as the water level goes up, and we'll just say 6 inches different from what maybe the stable level from other years might be. It changes the pools, it changes everything. And I'll tell you what it really changes is it changes my ability to wade. And I think we might take that for granted. We think, okay, there's the river, let's go wade and fish. As that water goes up, the current increases, the pressure against you increases, and it makes your wading much more difficult and potentially much more dangerous. And one of my biggest struggles in wading to catch fish is in keeping from falling, because we're talking about wading on rocks and boulders and the different sizes. As the water level goes up, the pressure against your legs increases tremendously. And as that happens, your ability to counteract changes in balance really decreases. It becomes a lot more difficult to keep yourself from falling if you start to tip or go, and you're going to do that constantly. The other thing that I've really found is visibility. If you can't really watch the rocks that you're stepping on, if you can't see them clearly, you got to use your feet as your guide, your feet as your eyes, and that can be difficult because you've got to slowly move as you change locations, slowly move each time you raise your foot and put it back down. It's almost a technique I've learned to keep me going, I guess, so that I don't fall as much. But it's important for us to know that. And as far as the quality of the fishing, for me, I've always said that I love it the most when the water's down. The fish congregate in pools that you can more readily see. But it all changes when it goes up. They leave those pools. Those pools no longer have the right flow of water. They may be too aggressive. They may not give them shelter or calmness or all the things that they need most of the time. And so this is something that's really affected my fishing this year. I've also noticed that the bass that I'm catching, they seem different than they have in other years. The bass in the Grass River that I've caught so far seem slimmer. Now, that's totally subjective. And that's just me thinking that. They may not be, but they do. They seem slimmer. They also, in the Grass River, they seem bigger on average than I've caught on average in other summers. I know last year, and I talked about going out and catching 80 or 90 bass, and most of them were probably 8 inches or less. This year, going to the same areas, many, many more of the bass that I'm catching are 10 inches instead of 8 inches. That makes a huge difference in the enjoyment of the strike, the battle, and so forth. They all get returned, but still, it's different. So what does it mean? Does it mean just that bass sort of gather by sizes in the areas that I'm fishing now, that different year class is more predominant? Or is it the diet has changed? Is it that we've really got a good reproductive system in the Grass River in particular, so that there's lots of fish that are replacing those that maybe died the year before? I don't know, but observations are always a part of becoming a better fisherman. Always watching, analyzing what you see, and that's what I am seeing. The other thing that I did want to talk about is the giant size of some of the smallmouth in the Racket River. By average, the smallmouth bass in the Racket are bigger than the average smallmouth bass in the Grass River. Doesn't mean that there's not extremes in both rivers where it's possible to now and then get a 4-pounder. But on average, the bass in the Racket River are bigger. I don't know why. Genetics, whole different ecosystem that each body of water has, I'm not sure. But there's some really big bass in the Racket. So if you've never fished there, you really have a chance. Let's say you're pretty good at catching bass and you get a stretch of river that is pretty good. You can average a lot more 14 plus inch bass in the Racket than you will in the grass at most times of the year. Something to think about and something to go experience and discover. Until next time, folks, this is Don Meissner with the North Country Fishing Report.